Okay, I have 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Alguien que necesita interpretar para la Junta? Do we have any requests for translation?
No requests this meeting, Trustee Good.
Thank you. This meeting is being recorded or broadcasted. Images and sounds may be captured of those attending the meeting. For board members making motions, please state your name when you make a motion. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have something new. It's kind of a treat with some student involvement. So I'm going to introduce Melanie Corona to introduce this new exciting Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening, President Good, Board Trustees, Superintendent Flores, and members of Cabinet. I'm really excited to share with you tonight our new and improved Pledge of Allegiance. I need to say a special thank you to Gilroy High Senior Ben Anderson and Gilroy High Activities Director Chris Leon for really putting this project together. We invited students from all of our schools to participate in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Ben edited it with his expertise, and he did a really good job. I'm very proud of him. And without further ado, please enjoy. The students will take it from here.
Welcome everybody. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Bienvenidos a todos. Favor de ponerse de pie para hacer honor a la bandera.
Please rise and remove your head coverings and hats.
Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
And please be seated.
That was great. Thank you very much. Much better than us standing up and reciting it. Like 100 times better. Next, I have approval of the agenda, action item.
This is Linda. Move approval.
PC second.
Second.
And I need to. Okay, that's fine. All those in favor, roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz.
Yes.
BC Doyle.
Yes.
Twin Fioc.
Yes.
Mark Good.
Yes.
James Pace.
Yes.
Linda Paceno.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, we have general public comment. I understand we do have some public comment tonight.
Yes, we do, Trustee Good. The first public comment is from Jennifer Evans. Good evening, Dr. Flores and board members. Do you remember your favorite teachers? Why were they your favorite? If I had to guess, you would remember the teachers who went above and beyond, the teachers who made a connection with you, the teachers who not only taught the curriculum, but they made school meaningful for you. Having been at GUSD since 1997, I've met numerous teachers who would fit this description. But as we all know, we aren't teaching under the same circumstances as the past. Now more than ever, the teachers of GUSD are working countless hours to make these connections and to make school meaningful. A statement that really rings true is, teachers are flying the plane that they're building in the air. We must teach daily lessons without being able to use many of the usual tools in our toolkit during distance learning. Knowing that the teachers of GUSD are doing everything they can to make a difference in our students' lives during an unprecedented pandemic, why isn't the district doing the same for its teachers? Our union reports that GUSD isn't even willing to give teachers a single % raise on the pay scale, nor are they willing to cover the rising costs of healthcare premiums. This means GUSD is asking teachers to take a pay cut. How can that be? What more does the district expect of us? Is the district saying the teachers don't deserve the amount it would take to keep up with the cost of living? I truly hope the district and the Board of Education take a closer look at what its teachers are doing during this historic moment in time. Feel free to join me in a Zoom meeting. Come see what it really takes to do a good job during this pandemic. And then I would love to hear the justification of why teachers of GUSD should be happy with the pay cut. Why should we stay in a district that doesn't value its teachers? I hope GUSD reconsiders its decisions during the upcoming negotiations with GTA. Thank you.
Evening, members of the board, Dr. Flores, and community members. My name is Cynthia Gonzalez, and I teach English and ELD at Gilroy High School. The purpose of this comment is to share with you a teacher's perspective on the current state of negotiations between GTA and the district. I have been a faithful employee of Gilroy Unified since I began teaching here in 2011, and I was an active member of the community until I had to move to Hollister to care for my elderly parents. There has never been a tougher teaching year in my career than this year. I am worn out. There is never enough time to finish everything teachers are being asked to do. Planning, teaching, grading, contacting parents, contacting students, attending IEPs and 504s, collaborating with our cohorts, completing monitoring documents for English learners, watching YouTube tutorials on how to engage students during distance learning, voluntarily signing up for PD from the CDE or any other organization to understand the tools that we are working with. I could go on if I had more time, but I have to get back to my planning, which, by the way, a 15-minute activity takes about an hour to plan. The demands of distance learning have increased, but the appreciation from the district has remained the same. It's dismal. A simple acknowledgement during board meeting reports does not suffice. We need the district's negotiations team to really show how much they appreciate teachers with actions. Recently, teachers have spent so much money in order to have the equipment necessary to teach from home. We also had to upgrade our internet service to make sure our bandwidth is adequate. Some may say that we have the option to teach from our site. However, we are currently living through a pandemic and we are trying to keep our families safe. Teaching from our sites is not an option for many of us. Asking the district to please put your money where your mouth is and truly negotiate. The number that is being offered from the district for a raise is an insult to its employees. I'm asking the board to look for your own information and not rely heavily on what you're being told. Truly appreciate your teachers with a respectable offer.
The next comment is from Nancy Mesa. I have been an educator in Gilroy Unified for 34 years. During that time, there have been many times in which the district and teachers did not see eye to eye on various issues. One area in which it seems there is always discord is when it comes to fairly compensating those who are in the trenches each and every day. Teachers in Gilroy switched between in-person instruction and distance learning in a matter of just a few days last spring. From the beginning of this school year, we have adapted our lessons, spent countless hours going above and beyond what we thought was possible, and we continue to provide the students of Gilroy Unified with quality instruction, even in the most difficult of situations. As are my coworkers, I am working from home. Working from home means paying more for electricity, heating, and cooling, and internet. In addition, when working at my school site, I was typically there from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. With distance learning, I'm consistently adding at least 1 to 2 hours of additional work time daily, and that doesn't include the time that I'm spending on the weekends, in order to give my students feedback, communicate with parents, and adjust and prepare lessons that will be effective in our current distance learning model. I am concerned with the fact that the current model presented by the districts, teachers will, in effect, be asked to take a pay cut due to the increase in out-of-pocket medical expenses and our unique working conditions, including increased expenses at home. I urge the district and the board to reconsider the offer and to take the fact that their teachers deserve the very best. We're doing everything we can to give you our best. Thank you.
The next comment is from Haley Saldana. This is my 17th year teaching in the district. This is by far the most challenging year I have had for lesson planning, engaging students, and providing for the social and emotional needs of my students. Distance learning has taken a toll on both my mental and physical health. In the spring, I was near tears almost every day. I was drained at the end of each day and working at all hours to help students and follow up with families. I made a resolution not to work myself to tears this fall, but this year, the extended time at my computer and staring at a screen for 8 to 10 hours a day with very few breaks has taken a toll on me physically. I have neck pain, eye strain, my right hip constantly giving me issues. I am scheduling a doctor's appointment to meet with a physical therapist to help get some relief. I know that many teachers are facing the new physical strains and pains from distance learning. We are tethered to our computers and we have to purchase every ergonomic chair, cushion, mouse pad, computer stand, desk, and even lighting out of our own pockets. Now we are facing an increase in our out-of-pocket health benefits during a pandemic. This is a time where we should be focused on ensuring that staff have affordable health care. I am disheartened to see that the district is unwilling to negotiate a fair pay raise for teachers who are working their fingers to the bone. Not only have my working hours increased dramatically, but so have my out-of-pocket expenses. My PG&E bill was over $400 one month and has shown a steady increase over the bills from last year. This is nearly a $100 increase from the same time last year. This is a time to ensure that our teachers are being valued. Year after year, GUSD has shown that teachers are not a priority. We are losing teachers to other districts and to other professions. We need to attract and retain the teachers that our students deserve. We need to value the work and effort with fair compensation and affordable healthcare.
The next comment is from Nancy Jabber. The great efforts that all teachers have demonstrated during the shift to distance learning has been extraordinary. Excessive amounts of planning time to create engaging lessons, an enormous amount of time to review and assess how to teach the next lessons, working with students who need differentiated support, and much more. Our district should not be so reluctant to adjust our salaries to match the amount of work we are dedicating to provide an education to all students in our district, especially during such extenuating circumstances.
The next comment is from Lisa Matson. Good evening to all. I am a teacher for GUSD, and this year is unlike any other year of my past teaching experience. I would also like this year to look different for teacher compensation negotiations. Every time our contract is due for negotiation, we, the teachers, on top of our demanding jobs, are making signs, standing on street corners, and advocating for pay and benefit coverage so we can support ourselves and our families. We are the only bargaining unit that does this each time, but not the only one to benefit. In a year where we especially see the importance of health benefits, the district has proposed not to maintain the cost for its members. Yes, one time for this year, pay increase for 1.5% will not even cover the cost increase of our benefits for some members. Many of us will be making less in 2021 than this year. How many employees across the district will choose to forego health insurance to pay rent or put food on the table? When I saw that the one-time distance learning payout was a percentage, I was saddened that the people who make the least got the lowest amount of help. Stimulus checks by our government were based on who needed it most. At the very least, it could have been split evenly. I heard that many other districts did a percentage. If we are looking at other districts to model what GUSD does, then why don't we look at their compensation as well, instead of consistently being at the bottom bracket of teacher pay and benefits in Santa Clara County. During this year, in which teachers hear a Zoom chime 300 plus times a day, have made countless Google slide lessons, research and apply distance learning best practices, dress up and try to make virtual school as engaging as possible, where we troubleshoot technology issues and are available by email, phone, and text all hours of the day, can the district recognize our hard work and dedication? Can we be compensated fairly so our families will not suffer from our pay being cut? The district had almost $14 million in surplus funds last year, and most years we have a surplus. Why does anyone's pay need to go down? Why force people to choose between rent and food over health insurance costs? Please show us that we are valued and make a fair offer. Thank you. And that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Next, we have report of action taken in closed session. We have one item, 2A, approval of stipulated expulsion agreement. Case number 2021-01, and I would entertain a motion.
BC, move to approve.
This is Linda, second.
Motion is second. Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Pisano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, we have student board member report. Catherine, hope I pronounce your name right. Yambo?
Yeah, that's right.
Great.
All right, let me pull it up. All right, so I'm going to be presenting in behalf of Rucker Elementary and my school, Gilroy High School. So first, let's do Rucker. So every month they're doing monthly material pickup where students come pick up like their books and just like drawing supplies from the teachers. Here, these are two students in their spirit gear going to drive by to pick up their materials. And then they also got the chance to have Santa Clara Public Library come out in a bookmobile. Students were able to come and get some books, like instead of going to the library, they brought it towards the school. So I thought that was really nice. At Rucker Elementary, there is a new mural. So this was in behalf of mixing in their mascot of the cougar and then the ADB wolf mascot to symbolize both schools coming together. And then they do this monthly dining for $1 every month. Each month, the home and school clubs, they promote a local restaurant for families to support. Last month, they did Tea Leaf. So their last activity was last Friday. This was at Power School. There is about 70 students on campus, all socially distanced, but they provide them with like costumes and pumpkins with activities to carve them and to dress up. So they do morning announcements 3 times a week. It is led by students. They do announcements, the pledge, and the announced birthdays. For parent volunteers, there's a lot of parents really helping the students out. They did a club called like GUSD. So this is where students had to read books in both English and Spanish. Then they talk about it afterwards, kind of like a book club. And they also have this Art to Life projects every month where students are encouraged to like draw. And it's like a contest every month where they get to see all of the art projects. And then lastly, we have rock and roll. So to encourage fitness and to keep the walk and roll theme alive, they encourage students to post pictures of them exercising at home, walking, or riding their bikes. So for upcoming events, they are going to be nominating representatives for their student council meeting. So the students are going to be recording videos of themselves choosing why people should vote them. They are going to start a virtual kindness club to promote kindness and mental health while staying at home. And they also have some enrichment opportunities for the kids, such as teachers are going to be helping them with public speaking or with art activities. And then it's going to be Gilroy High School. So on July 21st, our poll is finally finished. So now we have one beautiful big pool, and it's going to go into the deep end instead of having to like last year. And the students are already utilizing this for water polo. On the week of August 3rd through 7th, we did have senior portraits and ID photos, but with the whole fog and the fires, we did have a remake for ID photos on September 21st and the 22nd for the freshmen. On August 12th, there was the first day of school. So here are just some pictures of the yearbook and ASB class on the first day. And then on the week of August 13th and 19th, we were distributing books. This was led by staff and campus supervisors. It was like a drive-by. And then the retakes for textbook pickup were on the 26th and the 27th. On August 21st, the ASB board members, we coordinated senior sunrise just for like the first activity for our seniors. So we ordered McDonald's and then Martinelli's apple juice, and we had the students drive up, and we each gave them a personalized card that each of the ASB members wrote. So we gave it to them as they drove by. And then on the week of August 21st, when we were doing textbook distributions, we gave out little pieces of paper and the Burger King crowns of like how to build your crown. And we got these pictures sent in by some of our students. And then on August 28th, we did hold our ASB elections where the students recorded their videos on why they should pick them. So we have Aaron as president, Arabella as vice president, Madison as secretary, and Addison as treasurer. And then for the sophomores, we did have Marcus Horta as president. For the juniors, we have Joshua Barneson as president, Angeline Chacon as vice, Jada as secretary, and Alicia as treasurer. For the seniors, we had Rachel Stevenson as president, Milka for vice, Alyssa secretary, and then Caitlin treasurer. And then for the board members, Shireen DeSange is our president, Leslie is our vice, Priscilla is our treasurer, Kayla's our secretary, and then I'm their student board rep. And on September 8th, we did launch our first Mustang Media episode. So this is like our announcements. We release it every week. It's all led by the board members, so we edit it. And then every week we always have announcements. And then we have a theme. So we've been doing like teachers would like throw in a video, like saying some special words. We've also had some students like in sports say like how long they've been in the sport. And I know for the month of November, people are gonna go on and say like what they're thankful for. And these are all posted on our Instagram. So this is just a picture of September 11th for ceramics. Mr. Stephenson, our teacher, he is still giving out clay, and students do come in to get their work graded on the spot. So that's how that whole class has been going on, because it's been really different. On September 15th, we did have back to school night virtually. The difference in attendance between online and in person wasn't that big of a difference. It was nice to see parents get involved still. So we've been trying to throw out a few games or just social media stuff that our kids could take a part in. So on September 8th, we did do like a short trivia questionnaire on our Instagram saying like, oh, how well do you know our mascot? Do you know who our principal is? And just random questions like that. And we also had a bingo about quarantine to see what the students have been doing. And then the week of October 5th, we did have our sports start. Even though they did shut down, all of our sports are back and running as of this week. And on October 5th, in order to honor World Teachers Day, we did have new teachers. We posted pictures of the new teachers with a bio of where they come from on our Instagram. And October 7th, we did have senior parent night. So parents were joined on and they got to see what was the difference between their seniors applying to college now. On October 9th, we had our first collaboration class with CHS. This was the first one we've ever done. So it was nice seeing the CHS people come in during our fourth period, and we got to go in breakout rooms with them and discuss like future activities that we could do together as just one community. And then on October 15th, there was the Great Shakeout where some of our teachers played the earthquake drill video during class. On October 15th, we had our first club rush. So here we asked some of the clubs to send in videos and do like voiceovers, trying to promote their club. And then right after school, we had the kids join in their Google Classroom codes where they got to like talk with them. And here's just a movie club and CSF. Then October 16th, we did have the staff appreciation barbecue where our principal, Mr. Kapagu, he decided to cook and he served about 100 staff members. Then October 21st, we did have our first Spirit Day, so in order to honor Breast Cancer Awareness Day, we told students to wear pink or at least have a pink background. On October 23rd, we did have our first rally day of the quarter. This actually went out, they actually came out really well. We did have TikTok videos from like the cheerleaders and then the sports, so we promoted those differently. We did have games such as like bobbing for apples where they would provide the materials and they got to play the game at home. And then we also had a race between Marty, and we also had choir put in a little performance as well. And we're planning on doing this every quarter still. October 23rd, we did have STEM Club. It was their mold day. So in order to celebrate Avocado's number, which is like a basic measuring unit in chemistry, they played Kahoot and they ate guacamole on Zoom. On October 28th, for our last activity, we did have the pumpkin carving contest where students got to carve their pumpkins at home and they were graded based off like props, scariest, creative, and funniest. Then we had our overall winners. They are going to receive gift cards donated by the parent club. And then for upcoming events, we did for November, we are going to do the 10 days of thanks where we're going to encourage students to say thankful to their grandparents or to their teachers. And then on Thanksgiving, we are going to have all of our ASB students write emails to everyone in the school so we could just like appreciate them and showing them that we still do care. And then for December, we are going to have a cookie and ornament contest similar to like the pumpkin one, except for like December and holiday theme. And we are going to have like a guess who. So we're going to have kids send in like baby pictures and then people are going to have to guess who it is like now. And then we are going to try to do some honorable recognition for the students who've been doing really good in school. That date is to be determined and how we're going to do it is still unsure, but we are going to try to figure something out for that. And then that is it.
Catherine, thank you for that excellent and detailed report. It really convinces me that there's a lot of stuff going on both at Rucker and at Gilroy High. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Next, we have Superintendent's report. Dr. Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Good job, Catherine. You're a hard act to follow. The first thing I want to do, a little different than I normally do, but I'd like to share a message with parents and guardians in our district and ask them to please take time to complete the application for free and reduced meal service through the Titan School Solution. We just mailed those out to parents and they should be receiving those shortly. By doing so, even if you think your family doesn't qualify, you may receive benefits for your children and ensure crucial funding for the school district. So we're asking everyone's cooperation to please complete these applications and put them right back in the mail in the self-addressed stamped envelope. All right, for my report, as you already know from Catherine's report, Mr. Kaputku, who is a great chef, provided a staff appreciation barbecue luncheon for his staff. And as Catherine mentioned, there were about 100 people that took advantage of that. That was a wonderful way to bring the staff together. On October 26th, I attended the South County Youth Task Force meeting, and this was our second or third meeting along with Twen Fiac, where we were discussing SROs and some of the services that they provide and the divergent viewpoints on SROs in schools. On October 27th, Alvaro Mesa, Dan McAuliffe, and I attended a workshop on ventilation, which was very interesting. We heard from some experts, some local and others, with recommendations about what the district can do to make to provide the best air quality that we can in our classrooms during the pandemic. And we'll be sharing with you some of those recommendations at a later date. We are continuing to plan for the new South Valley Middle School. It's getting very exciting. Our most recent meeting was about the exterior of the building, really what's the building going to look like from the outside, and it was very exciting. We'll be sharing some more information with our facilities committee at our upcoming meeting and eventually with the board. But the project's really coming together, and we're so excited about it. On October 29th, we had a health and wellness subcommittee meeting. As you recall, we have 3 subcommittees of our reopening planning committee. So Anna and I are the chair of the health and wellness subcommittee, and we met on the 29th. Last Friday, I had the great opportunity to attend the Silicon Valley Leadership Annual Forum. And these are 2,000 mostly technology leaders in our Silicon Valley area. And I have not attended this before, but as you can see, one of the guest speakers was Dr. Fauci. So they hooked me in along with lots of other people. And Dr. Cody was also there. And the prior health executive officer, Marty Finchesai, I'd never say his name right. So, but it was fascinating to listen to these 3 experts talk about COVID-19, particularly Dr. Fauci's discussion about vaccine development, the rising number of cases in the United States. And if anyone's interested, I did videotape his comments. I'd be glad to share those with you, but it was very interesting and very worrisome as I listen to Dr. Fauci, where we're headed as a nation right now with COVID-19. And then of course, Tuesday was election day. Very exciting process in our country. I've continued. I'm having trouble talking tonight. I'm sorry. I've got a big bandage on my chin and it's affecting my speech. I apologize. I've completed all the fall site visits. So in the fall, I visit every school site. So you can see the list of site visits, and Linda Paceno attended most of those with me. So over the past week, I visited all 3 middle schools, and prior to that, I actually visited Rod Kelly twice so that I could drop in on teachers at various grade levels. And as I've said, every time I give these reports this fall, it is just amazing what our teachers are doing. And I'm just completely in awe of the work they're doing in their classrooms to make distance learning work for our students. They're doing a great job. I'm very proud of them and very grateful to them for all their hard work. And now what we're starting, that concluded my fall site visits with the 3 middle schools. And now we're starting our APS visits. As the board knows, every winter, the Ed Services team and I visit all of our schools using a monitoring instrument that we originally created, and now it's been modified at many of the sites. So we started, just like I started my fall site visits at GECA, and was able to come up with some great ways to do the fall site visits, thanks to Sonia Flores and her creativity and innovation. So we started with GECA for our first APS visit, and I thought it worked really well. I think the rest of the team, we kept the team smaller than normal, and we have some ideas about how to do it at the bigger schools using small teams. So the high schools are first, so we'll be going to Gilroy High on November 17th and Mount Madonna on the 19th. I always have a lot of meetings during the month. I think one of my most interesting meetings every week is the superintendent's meeting, all the superintendents in the county with public health and with the county office of ed. We went over a lot of new procedures this Tuesday that we'll be implementing in our district. For instance, related to contact tracing and what to do when you have a COVID-19 case at a school. And then we have a number of upcoming events. Tomorrow's a staff development day, so we don't have school. And I've seen the list of workshops. Looks like some really great workshops. I'll be dropping in on those tomorrow. Next Wednesday, no school, as it is a federal holiday, Veterans Day. And then the break, Thanksgiving break, starts November 23rd to the 27th. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. Next, we have the consent agenda, and we're going to be pulling item number C to discuss separately. So I would entertain a motion for items 6A and B, and then D through I.
Move to approve.
This is Twin. I second.
All those, or roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Pisano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item number 6C, ratification of contract renewal with Cheryl Galloway for emergency preparedness training, not to exceed $15,000. And I actually asked that this be pulled because we've had our person working in that position for the better part of a year. And I understand that it may not be $15,000 because we've already spent some money. So maybe we could get some additional details on that.
Ms.
Yeah, good evening.
Alvaro, thank you.
Good evening, President Good. Thank you for the question. So just to clarify, last year we did have a contract with Ms. Galloway that expired on June 30th. And because of that pandemic, the not to exceed contract for last year, that was also for $15,000. We really paid a total of $5,985 to Ms. Galloway. So there was about $9,015 left. But that contract terminated June 30th. So, you know, our process is that contracts terminate June 30th. And if we want to pay out an additional dollar after that, we have to come back to the board, either renew the contract or modify the contract, but it takes board action. So what we're asking for tonight is to renew the contract, but we could also look at what we're spending in the last 2 months of August and September, and what we project to spend. This is a not to exceed 15,000. So just like last time, we paid for, and just like every other contract, we pay for services rendered, period. So the contract is to not to exceed 15,000 for the entire year, but it's not expected to reach those limits. Based on the trend from August and September, I think it's $500 or $600 that we've paid out so far for those services that have been already rendered in August and September.
So of the 15,000 that was authorized last year, we've spent 6,000?
Roughly, yes.
And you're asking for an additional 15,000?
No. Just a new authorization for up to 15,000. So once the fiscal year ends, Trustee Good, like any other contract, the prior contract that the board authorized terminated. It ended June 30th. So that 9,000 went into the fund balance. It's part of the fund balance, part of the reserves right now. It's part of the budget. There's zero authorized dollars for Ms. Galloway right now.
No, I understand all that, but what I think you're saying is instead of a $15,000 contract, now we're really going to have a 2-year $21,000 contract. Is that right?
If you add what was paid before, that would be correct. If we actually reach those $15,000 not to exceed levels, we could just look at what the contract originally was, authorize the remaining 9,000 that was already there for last year, and we could start with that. And if we reach those levels, when we come back to the board, or the board can pick an amount that the board is comfortable with.
Okay. I mean, my thinking last year when we originally approved this was the person we were hiring was an unknown. Cheryl was outstanding and had made a lot of new pathways and actually evolved from one job to another and another and another, and was kind of a unique resource. But our new employee has been doing an outstanding job. His background, he's a retired police officer. So I kind of question whether we really need any additional training.
So obviously I took a lot of feedback from our current employee, who's obviously have a background in law enforcement. And there is some things that are unique to the position that he has not done yet. And he highlighted several key areas that I've shared with the board that he has requested additional training from Cheryl Galloway. So the board is asked to take action on the matter because he has requested additional help from Ms. Galloway as a former employee that held the position for nearly a decade.
Okay, I saw that, and thank you. A lot of the things dealt with command posts and interfacing with police and fire, which if you're a cop for as many years as he was. Trustee Paceno?
I would say Cheryl was on the job for 10 years and created that job. And there were so many different areas that she took on. So it doesn't surprise me that our current employee would want some additional training. However, I would like to keep it to the total to the original 15. So I would say then the 2021 contract would be up to 9,000.
Any other board questions or comments?
This is Enrique, Trustee Good.
Yes, Trustee Diaz.
Yeah, I had mentioned it before as well. I remember when this issue came up. I'm okay with this exception to allow additional training, but I did mention at the time that I would like that tribal knowledge to be written down somewhere ahead of time. It's one thing when somebody leaves unexpectedly, she happened to have given notice, and that would have been the time to, ongoing would have been the time to actually document the processes. If not during that remaining time when the notice had been given. I do appreciate that knowledge gets grown within the person and then doesn't get transferred on. But it's something that we should keep in mind for future reference. I'd also like to keep in mind, as Trustee Good pointed out, that it doesn't grow to 15,000 plus 5,000. It seems to grow, would grow quite a bit at that point. But I do appreciate that you also mentioned Aurelio's need, because if he's the one that is requesting it, then I fully respect that as well.
Any other board questions or comments? Trustee Paceno, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I move that with the change in the contract to a maximum of 9,000, I move approval.
PC, second.
Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Paceno.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item 7A, public hearing. Notice of public hearing with respect to a resolution authorizing the requesting of the State Board of Education to waive the Gilroy Unified School District's statutory bonding limit. And so I will open up the public hearing. Mr. Mesa.
Thank you, President Good. Once again, good evening, board. Good evening, Superintendent. We are really grateful to our community for the passage of Measure E. This was back in June 7, 2016. Obviously, with help from the community, we've improved the quality of our facilities throughout our district. And I just want to mention just a handful of projects. The two-story building at Gilroy High, the rebuild of the pool also at Gilroy High comes to mind. And of course, right now, if you drive through First Street, you'll see we're rebuilding Brownell Middle School. So what will it take to rebuild South Valley, right? Well, we have that remaining authorization from Measure E back from 2016 left outstanding that the board has earmarked to completely rebuild South Valley using those funds, about $94.6 million left out of that bond measure that the community so greatly authorized and approved and passed back in 2016. So what will it take for us to actually build South Valley to access that money? There's a limitation of 2.5% of the total assessed values in Gilroy, which is roughly $12 billion. And so there's a formula that limits how much you can issue, but there's also a state board waiver that we can seek and get authorization from the State Board of Ed to effectively waive that requirement so that we can move forward at a really advantaged time right now where the interest rates are low. These are paid by taxpayers like myself, right? We live in Gilroy, we pay these bonds. And so when the interest rates are low, it limits the payment. It's actually the cost to the taxpayers. So it's really advantageous to the taxpayers and to us as a district to issue these bonds, seek the waiver from the state, because the longer you wait in construction, money's time. Time is money in construction. And so we were trying to do these for two reasons. Low cost to the taxpayers, low cost to the district, and to rebuild our school that is now the oldest in the entire district. So this is just a public hearing. I believe that part of the attachments to the agenda item was the same discussion agenda that we had from October 15th, where we go through the calculations, we show the potential of what it would take if we just don't do the waiver. It would take us several years, 6-8 years, to reach to that point, assuming a steady assessed valuation, growth in assessed values, for us to then issue those bonds, at which point interest rates are guaranteed to be higher than today because they're historically low today. And then obviously with time is money in construction, just the cost of building the school will be a lot greater than. So this is a public hearing. We're hoping to take any comments. I do want to state for the record that the Citizens Oversight Committee is supportive of this the waiver requirement or seeking the waiver from the state board, and so are all our bargaining units. Mr. Winslow and I met with each bargaining unit, all together. GTA, GFP, and CSCA are all supportive of this waiver from the State Board of Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Mesa. Are there any board questions or comments? Do we have any public comment?
No public comment, Trustee Good.
Thank you. Well, I'll close this public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Mesa. Next, we have item 7B, another public hearing, AB 1200, public disclosure of tentative agreement between the Gilroy Teachers Association and GUSD for one-time coronavirus relief stipend. Mr. Mesa.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Just like our last board meeting, I'd like to make some very brief comments as I did before you approved the CSCA, GFP, and Management Confidential stipend of 3%. I want to thank all of our GTA staff who will receive this stipend for the incredible job they're doing on a daily basis in the distance learning environment, and to many people who are doing things above and beyond what they normally would do at a school site because of the pandemic and all those outcomes of that. We are so grateful to their hard work. And as was mentioned earlier, even in public comments, as I mentioned to you before, we know that teachers have had to spend money out of their own pockets to make this work. Those that are working at home, we know that many teachers are putting in it, and other certificated staff are working many additional hours. And we are just so grateful for that. And we were fortunate to have these one-time funds that we are able to use for this purpose. So we're really pleased to be able to do this tonight. And I want to thank the GTA negotiating team. This was a difficult issue, and we reached an agreement, and I'm really appreciative of them agreeing to this 3% stipend. And by doing so, when they did, we believe we're going to be able to pay pay the 3% stipend for all our employees at the end of November. And we're working, that, by the way, is a very big job for payroll and HR, and they're working diligently on it to pay, you know, over 1,000 employees this additional stipend, and we believe we're going to get it done in time for the end of the month. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. Any board questions or comments? Seeing none. Oh, Trustee Pacino.
I just want to make the comment that these are one-time money, and that the board has chosen to use these one-time money for employees as a 3%. Was not mandated by anybody, and it was a choice. And it is, as Dr. Flores says, reflects our respect for and our appreciation to all of our employees.
It's an unusual, piggybacking off that, it's an unusual concept for those who don't deal with public education to understand that. The board wanted to give a 3% stipend to all its employees. However, we're not allowed to do that under the law, under the California Education Code. We had to bargain to give the 3% stipend. So that's essentially what happened. You can't give a bargaining unit money without them agreeing to it. So it's a weird concept, but that's the way it is. Is there any public comment? Oh, Mr. Meza?
I just want to, for the record, disclose some things that we're required to disclose, if I may, President Good. The AB 1200 does require that the superintendent and the CBO certify that we can afford this agreement. And as Trustee Pacino mentioned, we are using, thankfully, the one-time Corona relief funds to fund this expense. And what is required to disclose, that I will disclose now, is the cost. $1,757,081 will be funded by the Corona Relief Fund, which is very time sensitive because we do have to spend these funds by December. And as our superintendent mentioned, we wanted, and as you did, President Good as well, we wanted to do this for every single employee. And so it was really, time was of the essence here. And I also want to personally thank GTA. The entire team wants to thank our teachers union and our teachers. Every one of you guys are doing a phenomenal job. But I do want to disclose the cost, $1,757,081, funded by the Corona Relief Funds again. And the cost, along with the disclosure forms that we're required to file, were filed with the county office. Part of the packet, I believe, also includes their acknowledgement letter, which was dated sometime in mid-October, I believe. And so we do want to thank you and the board for your consideration.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item?
No public comments, Trustee Good.
Thank you. I'll close the public hearing. Next, item 8A, Resolution 20/21-04 of the Board of Education of the Gilroy Unified School District, requesting that the State Board of Education to waive the district's statutory bonding limit. This is an action item.
Thank you, President Good. As aforementioned before in the public hearing, this resolution would in fact, if authorized, would allow the district to issue the remaining authorization under Measure E, so the modernization of South Valley can take place.
I would entertain a motion.
It's Enrique. I move to approve.
BC, second.
We have first and second. Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Pacino.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item number 8B, side letter between Gilroy Unified School District and Gilroy's Teachers Association regarding the 2020 stipend. This is an action item.
Thank you, President Good. Today, I'm presenting the side letter between, as you mentioned, the Gilroy Unified School District and the Gilroy Teachers Association. This is the document that will trigger what our CBO Alvaro Meza mentioned in AB 1200, 3% for all members of GTA. Very, very well deserved. And I know that our community greatly appreciates, and as a parent of a student at Rod Kelly, I know that I greatly appreciate all of the hard work and all of the work, as Dr. Flores mentioned, that has gone into this huge transition. So we're requesting that the board approves this item.
Thank you. Are there any board questions or comments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Enrique, I move to approve.
BC, second.
Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Paceno.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item 8C, new school linked services initiative for the 2020-2021 school year. This is an information item.
Thank you, Mr. Good. We're really pleased this evening to have some of our own staff and various personnel from the agencies that provide mental health services in our district provide you with an update about what they've been doing. And I know Anna and I both want to thank all of the people who are here this evening for the incredible job they're doing. They are serving so many of our students and families during these very trying, uncertain times. And we're just so grateful for the services that they're providing. And I believe Eric is going to take the lead. Eric Thompson is one of our staff, of course, and doing a great job also. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. I actually believe that Catherine or Guadalupe were going to take the first slides. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine Spears. I'm with the Santa Clara County Behavioral Health Services Department. I am the program manager overseeing School Link Services, the Schooling Services Initiative, and school-based behavioral health services. Thank you for this time to be able to share what we've been doing with School Link Services. We have with us our School Link Services Coordinator with Eric Thompson, as well as Guadalupe Ramirez with Behavioral Health, and our partners at Community Solutions and Rebecca's Children Family Services. If we can share the presentation. Should I go ahead and share my screen?
Lucy, can you help with that? Did we lose her?
Do you see the share screen button? I'm sorry, Catherine. Do you see it?
Yes. Lupe, do you want to go ahead and share the presentation? Oh, sorry, Lupe, you're on mute.
There you go. And I will share my screen. Okay.
And so if we can start with the second slide. So today we'll be sharing, sorry, next slide. Today we'll be sharing about the history of schooling services and the Schooling Services Initiative. I will share also about some information of the students and families served in FY20, and then also talk about the impact of COVID to the Schooling Services Initiative. We will also talk about the student re-engagement efforts, as well as share a little bit about the Schooling Services Coordination and Family Engagement, and lastly share the behavioral health services at Gilroy Unified School District. We will provide also a success story about a family and the student that received services. So just the history of schooling services. In 2004, California voters passed the Proposition 63 of the Mental Health Services Act, in which 1% of taxable personal income over $1 million was provided towards behavioral health services. So that has been distributed across California counties. We have utilized the MHSA funding as recommendations from Board of Supervisor Cortese to provide schooling services and school-based behavioral health services. So in 2012, we started establishing the Schooling Services Initiative and school-based behavioral health services. So we identified, looking at the high area risks areas in Santa Clara County, and Gilroy Unified School District was an area of high risk with factors that allocated reasons to why we would want to provide behavioral health services at Gilroy Unified School District. And so we are providing behavioral health services as well as family engagement and service coordination at Gilroy Unified School District. Our mission and vision, so our vision is by serving the needs of children and families through coordinated Integrated approaches on school campuses, SLS, will create equitable opportunities within schools and communities. And our mission is to improve the accessibility and efficiency and outcomes of multi-agency services provided to children and families in Santa Clara County schools through streamlined coordination, design, and implementation of services provided by schools, public agencies, as well as community-based programs. So you'll see on the right side our schooling services and essential elements. Our first element is service coordination, so ensuring that we coordinate services for students and families. Our second essential element is family engagement, ensuring that we engage families to welcome them and have them feel safe to coming on school campuses, and now doing this virtually. We also have campus collaboratives that engages the community as well as the students and the parents and school faculty and community-based organizations to identify the needs of the school district and the schools, and then the co-investment of the schooling services initiative. So the school district is also co-investing the time and effort to ensure that we implement the schooling services initiative in Gilroy Unified School District. I want to also share the, great, thank you. The Schooling Service Initiative comprised of 3 components. The family engagement component is primarily done by our schooling services coordinators, and we have 3 of them at Gilroy, Eric Thompson, Elizabeth Perez, and Nancy Herrera. They provide service linkage and triage to students who are needing behavioral health services or any other community resources. They provide services also such as one-time engagement activities and workshops at schools and at the school district. We are with family engagement services are across 15 school districts right now. We have 29 SLS coordinators, and collectively we serve over 10,000 students and families. Our second program that we have is our Prevention and Early Intervention program. This is a service that's provided at Gilroy Unified School District, primarily providing Tier 2 services, group and specific populations and supports and services such as skill streaming, therapeutic groups, and parenting groups. We are at 11 school districts across, provided by 8 community-based providers. And this program serves about 2,000 annually. Lastly, we have our Tier 3 service, which is our outpatient services in schools. This is more of our intensive services that provides individual therapy as well as case management linkage. This program is a little bit different where we do include medication support. We are at 13 school districts across, and we serve about 750 students annually. SLS at Gilroy has served in the fiscal year 20, they served over 498 students. They provided 639 referrals to behavioral health resources as well as community resources. They held 17 events, and a total of 3,900 students and families attended these events. Next slide.
So thank you, Catherine. My name is Guadalupe Ramirez, and I'm going to be talking about some of the adaptations that Schooling Services has gone through with COVID. Last year, we ended with shelter in place. So we worked with our team and schooling coordinators to adapt with providers for the needs of the community, and specifically with Gilroy. These are some of the highlights that we noted regarding accessibility with services. Coordinators were now able to work with providers on having virtual services and in-person services in a hybrid model. Coordinators were utilizing the relationships that they had not only with schools, administrators, but also with families to do check-ins and provide additional supports while shelter in place was happening, and also to make sure that services were rendered throughout this process. And then there was a transition from paper referrals to an online referral system that was able to streamline services in a more efficient manner. There's been support with teachers and parents that is more adapted to what the needs are regarding the entire district and specific areas in the age groups that are now being targeted. We also noted that there's been significant shifts in needs with the different age groups like we talked about. In general, as a district, we've seen a shift for basic needs that includes food, shelter, assistance with housing, more of the economical resources that some of our overall families are needing. There's been obviously some increase in distance learning and families needing support with digital devices, hotspots, navigating any technology issues, and assessing different digital pieces regarding how to check schools, how to engage with their teachers, how to participate in school functions with this distance learning component and this platform. There's also been an increase in crisis calls as school has resumed. We've also seen an increase in referrals for behavioral health, specifically around anxiety and isolation. We've seen a need for parent and teacher support, as we talked about and we heard earlier in this meeting, burnout and screen fatigue, not only from students, from teachers, but we've heard it from parents having a challenging time. We've also heard from families and our schooling coordinators the need for creating a routine at home and parents needing support managing their day-to-day life with children being at home and not being able to have their usual activities. Also, the need for non-screen activities that were their normal routine. Continuous training for digital platforms, just the technology divide and assessing these technology resources. Again, like we talked about the challenges, some of the noted significant challenges in providing service has been virtual fatigue, as some of our providers are acknowledging that. And even though the platform is there and the resources are there, in order to provide services in the community, there's been issues with scheduling therapy sessions, identifying students and their needs in addition to their basic needs as a family versus at crisis, having Zoom calls or a Zoom platform in order for them to receive services, the different traumas by age group, and also just simply connecting with parents remotely, having to separate that one-on-one that used to be their platform and being able to connect to these providers in the community so that they can register a name of an agency or a name of a clinician to a phase. So part of also our mission with our team has been to work with SEOE on identifying how we can re-engage students and how we can work with different school districts and including Gilroy to look into student re-engagement and how are we going to work towards bringing students back into campus. So our collaboration has been with PEI services and the different community providers to create a plan to do outreach resources by increasing referrals to the community and services that are rendered through our providers. And that includes a hybrid model through telehealth and in-person services, thinking about services that are not only for parents, like I said, but teachers, but looking at the different components of needs in your community, working through the venues that we already have, distributing information and platforms that families are already using, like food distribution centers, also events that the community is already attending, using school-based mental health services to conduct service like drop-in servicing and different type of modalities for treatment. We're also working on establishing, and I know Gilroy has been part of establishing town hall meetings, not only for students as the targeted age group, but also for parents to just be aware of mental health symptoms and how to access services in your community. The collaboration has been countywide on establishing resources and engaging families through this partnership. And we're hoping that we continue this partnership as distance learning continues so that we can continue providing mental health training for not only for school districts, but also for families. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this on to Eric to talk a little bit more about the specifics of the school district schooling services.
Yeah, thank you, Guadalupe. So as Catherine had mentioned earlier in this presentation, we do have 3 SLS coordinators in Gilroy Unified School District, and currently we are distributing the referrals by grade level. So I'm currently covering the elementary sites. Elizabeth Perez, is our SLS coordinator covering the middle schools, and Nancy Herrera, who's currently on leave, is covering the high schools. While she's on leave, families can reach out to either Elizabeth or myself to initiate a counseling referral. In addition to that, families can reach out to their teacher, counselor, academic coordinator, principal, really anyone at the school to request a counseling referral, and they would submit that counseling referral through the internal online referral form, which would go to one of the SLS coordinators. So thank you very much, and you can move on to the next slide. So just to briefly touch on this, and I know it'll be covered a little bit more in the following slides, our SLS team does provide coordinator engagement, so service linkage is available across all schools, which is new to distance learning. And then we are looking at some family engagement events with a hybrid or virtual model. So that's something that is in the process. We do work very closely with our community-based organizations for outreach in different venues. There are additional counseling services through other agencies, such as Diva Diversity, Discovery, and Differential Response. The referral process has been updated to have the online referral form, and the outreach venues are through virtual mediums now. And then also our SLS team can provide support to families for basic needs, for linkage to food resources, housing resources, other resources that may not be necessarily mental health. We can definitely support with that. And then in addition to that, we do work with our community organizations to provide virtual workshops, summer outreach efforts to families, social emotional learning workshops for students and families, and resource fairs. And I will pass it along to, I believe, Priscilla or Lupe.
Thank you, Eric. So I'm here from Community Solutions. I am Priscilla, and I'm here to talk about our preventive and early intervention program, which is a collaborative program between Community Solutions and Rebecca's Children's Services. We do provide outreach to students, and what that looks like on campus is, if we are at it, when we were on campus at the PEI schools, the kiddo is having a hard day, a teacher or principal can send a kiddo to us so that we can start to build rapport and start building that support to get the child into services. Also, all the students at Gilroy Unified School District are eligible for this program. Within PI, some of our services include our family workshops, parenting, child-family one-on-one, resource support, and crisis management. And one of the benefits of having us on campus is that we can consult and work with the teachers to help the student. For example, if a student's feeling really anxious in class, working with the teacher to give them some tips and tricks to help them, or to be on campus if a kid does need to leave just for a little quick moment to practice using their coping skills. And that was the beauty of having us, we will be back on campus as soon as we're allowed, but that is PI. I'm going to pass it to Lupe Ramirez Ceja, who will talk about SLS.
Thank you, Priscilla. So I'm Lupe Ramirez Ceja. I'm the clinical program manager with Rebecca Children's Services. I apologize, I'm not sure why it says Eric Thompson. But the other program that we offer in addition to PI is schooling services, as mentioned. And with this particular program, services are provided to children with Medi-Cal who are between the ages of 15 to 18 years old. And as mentioned previously, the services also include family workshops, parenting sessions, individual and group therapy, support with caregivers, consultation with teachers and school staff, crisis intervention, and also psychiatric services. And Priscilla will now talk about the adaptations and adjustments we have made in our programs to help better serve our community during these times of need.
Thank you, Lupe. So we have a temporary expansion from the county to be able to provide services to all children in Gilroy Unified School District. We are normally at our normal hub of schools, but with COVID and the need for children and families to get support, the county has granted us permission to go to all Gilroy schools. We are meeting with students via telehealth. So our staff are meeting with the kiddos after school, whether it's Zoom or Google, as Rebecca uses. We do have parenting workshops also via telehealth, which has been amazing for the parents because they don't need They don't need to even leave their house while learning how to help their children. Again, individualized services based on needs. We do have children who prefer that face-to-face and need that interaction face-to-face and come into our office. They meet at a park, whatever works for that family. We have also supported both Rebecca Children's Services and Community Solutions, meeting kids in the morning before logging onto that Zoom. A lot of kids are reporting anxiety, showing their face on camera, or just being with their friends in a different platform. So we have met with kids early in the morning so that they can get to school. We have been very creative in providing outreach. As Lupe Ramirez has also said, we've been providing town halls. We have been attending our ELAC meetings to talk to parents about what is mental health, what is self-care. We're working closely with SLS coordinators and behavioral health at the county. And we have also found creative ways to provide support for the families. For our PI families last year, they were in great need during COVID, and we provided them with food, clothing, again, whatever the family needed and the county would allow. We use some of our funds to help families during these challenging times. And so we do have a success story. We have a parent here who is very brave today from a Community Solutions parent. The parent has asked to not turn on their camera, and I'm going to honor that, and I will not be using the child's name. So, Mamá, ¿estás ahí?
Sí, aquí estoy. Buenas noches.
So Mom is saying good night to everybody and like good evening, and she is here. And the first question that I will be asking her is, what were her child's behaviors before SLS services were provided? And la primera pregunta que tengo es, ¿cómo eran los comportamientos de su hijo antes de empezar los servicios en SLS?
Oh, pues él tenía un comportamiento muy así, muy rebelde, como que me respondía mucho, me contradicía y no obedecía lo que yo le decía. Y pues él era un niño muy así como muy reservado, casi no quería que lo abrazara y me hacía a un lado cuando yo lo quería abrazar, y cuando le mandaba a hacer algo siempre me decía, ¿por qué yo? ¿Por qué puro yo?
Gracias. So Mom, Mom said that before SLS services were provided to child, he would respond in a manner that was not appropriate, would not listen to rules, very quiet and reserved. Even when Mom would go to show him affection, such as a hug, he would push her away. If Mom asked him for a simple thing to do, a simple task, he would say, "Why me?" The next question that I will be asking Mom, how is it having services on campus and how it has been helpful? Mamá, ¿cómo es tener los servicios en la escuela con la terapeuta y cómo te han ayudado?
Oh, pues la verdad me ha ayudado bastante, porque pues yo pienso que sola no podría. Él pues agarré los servicios cuando él estaba en una etapa muy difícil para él, que no podía controlar ya su carácter, y ya que agarró la terapista, agarré como me ayudó bastante, porque ella tenía comunicación conmigo al mismo tiempo, y me decía, cuando lo iba a ver, ella me decía, hablamos de esto, le enseñé esto, y si usted gusta usar las mismas estrategias para que podamos trabajar en equipo, ella me hacía saber todo lo que estaba pasando.
Gracias. So again, Mom needed lots of support. Again, Mom felt alone during this time, and kiddo was having a challenging time. From what I know, he couldn't control some of his behaviors. He would be upset, had some trouble at school, getting in trouble with peers, fighting, and the therapist really supported and would call Mom and say, hey, this is what we worked on, and provide some collateral education about strategies that they're using to help the kid be able to maintain anxiety or anger. And Mom enjoyed that they worked as a team. Mamá, ¿hay otra cosa que quieres mencionar o decir a la escuela?
Sí, pues la verdad también estoy agradecida con la escuela porque pues también la consejera me ha apoyado en la situación en la que se encontraba mi hijo. Me apoyaron y pues también participaron en pues cuando lo sacaba de la clase y pues estuvieron al pendiente de él también con sus calificaciones y me gustó el servicio que le está dando, que le dieron en la escuela con la terapista.
So mom has mentioned that also the school counselor was great and working with the kiddo, helpful to get him support. The mom is very thankful, both Gilroy Unified School District and Community Solutions, and just having the services at school has been an amazing support for the kid and her family.
Thank you so much, Priscilla, and thank you for the mom too.
Gracias, mamá.
So that
Sí,
concludes.
gracias.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation today. We just want to share those the success story as well as our services at Gilroy Unified School District, and we're open to any comments or questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any board questions or comments?
This is Enrique. I have a question.
Trustee Diaz.
Thank you for your presentation. So my first question was, so this is a service that's about to start to be offered, but isn't offered yet. Is that true?
No, services are still is being offered at Gilroy Unified School Districts. Due to the COVID-19 and shelter in place and school closures, we expanded it to all schools in Gilroy Unified School District. Prior to that, we were at targeted schools within your school district.
Okay, great, thanks. That's fantastic. And the follow-up question was, are you finding that you're able to deal with issues or emotional issues or behavioral issues that the student have? Or are you finding that you're like the pathway to refer them to a further service even then?
So with our behavioral health services across the school districts, we have the three components of a referral as well as prevention, early intervention, and outpatient services at school with schooling services, behavioral health. We are able to provide a referral if a higher level of need is needed, but we do want to provide the services through the programs that are at Gilroy Unified School District. And we have seen a lot of great outcomes with the services that we've been providing.
Great, thank you. All of you.
Thank you. Any other board questions or comments? Trustee Pacino?
Thank you. Just a question is there, under these trying circumstances, is there anything, any of your challenges that the district can help you with, or working together we can overcome?
We do really appreciate that the whole part of our outreach efforts that have been targeted to the community, to parents, to students, is really to increase referrals. Once school closures occurred and shelter-in-place orders were happening, the need for behavioral health services actually lessened, and we saw a reduction in referrals. And primarily because they were attending to their basic needs first, which is understandable. Now that we have been in shelter-in-place and distance learning, we do want to increase the information, the mental health awareness. So we do ask that if you share the information about just schooling services, and we can provide a brochure, that parents are aware that there are services that are available to them and to their children as well.
I would say that the need has not diminished, but the reach out or the outreach has.
Trustee Fiak?
So just to clarify, because of shelter in place, you've seen a reduction in the referrals that you're receiving, not an increase?
Right, at the beginning of shelter in place, we did see a reduction across Santa Clara County. So this was not just in your school district, but across Santa Clara County. We do a comparison from this year and as well as from last year to see the number of referrals, and we have seen that reduction. We are starting to see an increase. It started happening towards August when schools were starting to resume, and then it has been increasing over time. We have been seeing more referrals coming in the past month than we have seen more in the summer. So that's understandably too, during the summer, we see less referrals.
Thank you.
Any other board questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much again for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Next, we'll be calling item number 8D, GUSD College Readiness. Mr. Schrock.
Yes, hello. Good evening, Dr. Flores, President Good, members of the board and community. I am with you guys this evening to present on the GUSD Advanced Placement, SAT, and some college readiness data. But before I start, I think I just want to maybe take a few minutes to talk about the general state of assessment, right? I have not been with you yet this year. Usually the fall is my time to give a number of presentations, right? Normally I am giving a CAS presentation, an EL update with LPAC, and as we know, those did not happen in the spring. So, you know, we have not had data to share. The LPAC, the English Learner Assessment last spring, we were mid-assessment when we went into shelter in place. So of our 2,400 ELs, English learners, we tested about 1,400 of them, but it's, you know, it's a smattering. Some whole schools didn't finish their testing, right? And so it's really not data that's in a kind of in a state to share. I don't know if the state is going to publish any of that or not and do any kind of comparison. If they do, you know, we'll take a look at that later this year. You know, then the other question is, what about assessment this year, right? As we're in this remote situation, what is happening? And it's been a struggle. We have some of our star reading, right? So the question is, what kind of local assessments can we do? We're doing some star reading, some math benchmark assessments where teachers are having whole classes take the test as they're trying to monitor their screens, right? And as we know, that's going to be limited success, right? The data is going to be not 100% reliable, but it's doing those tasks that we can to pick up some of those tidbits of information along the way. You know, I've worked with teachers this year that say, you know what, we had a couple kids that the scores are really skewed. We'd like to retest them, you know, so we're doing some things like that. In addition, some other assessments we're doing this year, we purchased a new one-on-one testing interface just a month ago for kinder and first grade, because we knew we needed to do some really give the kinder and first grade teachers a chance to do some meaningful assessment of their students. And so they've been using that. We're just finishing up the first benchmark, and they've been administering, you know, letter sound, sight words, decoding words through a one-on-one interface. But even that is not without issues, right? We have situations where the teachers say, I hear somebody whispering the answers to them in the background, right? So all of these things, right, are going to be challenges that we're going to be faced with this year, but that doesn't mean we're not moving forward with a number of these different things, right? And so I guess, you know, I want to kind of give us what we're trying, what we know is working, what we know is going to work to some extent. And then another question is, you know, what will happen this spring? At this point, we're being told we will be administering the LPAC, the English Learner Exam, starting in February. And they're going to roll out some training starting next month for both a remote screen, remote assessment, as well as the option for an in-person. And just speaking about that English Learner Assessment, we actually have been doing a one-on-one assessment with our initials, right? We have all of those students who are new to California, many kindergartners, never been assessed before. And so we have about 300 initial assessments to administer this fall. And in this last month, we have brought them in one by one, following the social distance and protocols, having plastic screens between the tester and the student with masks on. And we have assessed those students. And I think the question is, are we going to go that route? Because one thing is 300 initials. Another question is 2,400 English learners in February to test across the board, right? So those are some strategies we have. And then the last thing is a question of CASP this year, of our end of year English and math assessments. And I think the state board today, from what I heard in a meeting I was in, has just looking at approving a shortened version but that it would be administered either in a remote or in-person assessment. So those are some things yet to come, some things we'll be dealing with as we move into the spring, and we'll see what our situation is in terms of where students are at and deal with those requirements. So having said all that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the data here, but I just kind of want to say, because this may be my, let me see if I can get a screen share here. There we go. Maybe one of my a few presentations this year in terms of data that we have available. And having said that, even this data has some caveats, right? Because data that we're looking at from last year, it comes with its own set of things to consider and consideration. So let's first talk about the advanced placement test. Get myself set up here. All right. It was given last year, and as many of you may know, there were significant modifications, right? It was administered remotely, that advanced placement test last spring. So once again, we'll look, we have the results here. We're going to talk about those results, but then we also have to keep in mind there was a different set of tests than has been given ever in the past. So that data has to be considered in that light. The test was given remotely. The AP tests were modified to, for the most part, eliminate any multiple choice questions, right? So as they were shortened and they were focused on problem solving, essay writing, the FRQs, the free response questions for many of the tests, the social studies tests, for example. And so then the question is, how does that affect the overall scores then? So what we look at here, what I did is I have our 2020 scores in this column, and I always include the national average, just kind of see where are we at compared to the national average, but I included both years of national average so that we can see. But in many cases, as we see overall, we had an increase in our pass rate and our number of students who scored 3, 4, or 5, what we generally consider kind of a passing the advanced placement test. But also, as we look at the national averages, we can see in many of these tests, also there was a national increase, right, in the percentage of students scoring 3, 4, or 5. So just to kind of keep that in mind, what does that mean for us? What did it mean overall as a change of the test? And so we do see that played out across the board, especially in the English language and the history, social studies tests. We really saw that play out quite significantly because those are tests that all previously had both a significant multiple choice section as well as the essay or free response section, right? So eliminating the multiple choice section, then the question is, what will that do? And in this case, we do see increases where students, where they had to do their own writing, perhaps is the stronger portion of the test in many cases. And what's interesting is that in many cases, our growth actually outperformed the national average in double digits in a few cases, right? If we see the English literature test from 2019 to 2020, and the English language test, the US history test, all of these made 16 to 20 percentage point increases. Now the national average increased, right? 10 percentage points, 8 percentage points, US history, 5 percentage points, but our increase was actually double that in many cases in terms of percentage point increase. Interesting to see, interesting to reflect on perhaps, how are we preparing our students to perhaps preparing them better to answer these problem solving questions, these essay questions, as opposed to the fine point, which is a kind of direction we'd like to see in our instruction, right? Now we'd like to see our test scores in general go up, but to think about, where might that emphasis be in our classes and how did that pay off on this shortened test is good to look at. And then if we look at the science test, at the biology test and physics test, we didn't see that same increase overall. And then also in the math and computer science classes, in the calculus, the computer science classes, which are generally problem-based tests to begin with, then we're not seeing that difference of a kind of problem-based versus elimination of multiple choice questions. And we saw some fairly similar numbers in both years across the languages. Maybe before I go on, any questions there, just on the overall Gilroy Unified and the change in AP? And we'll see this year, I don't know, Dr. Padilla, if you know if there's been a decision yet on how the AP will be administered this spring or not yet.
They have not notified us yet. They're
Right.
still in discussions about what they will do based on what is happening with schools across the country.
Right. So we will see whether this was an anomaly last spring or whether there will be a remote session as well this spring. I'm sure we will see in the next few months. Well, so feel free to jump in if you do have questions, and we can always come back at the end. And then if you look at the 220 year here, we can see we had a higher pass rate, 57% of all test takers, 53% of all students enrolled, much higher than the previous 4 years. Once again, we saw the trend nationwide have an increased pass rate, and Gilroy Unified perhaps outperformed that a bit. I think of all those things here, what we will also like to see is that we had, once again, more test takers in the previous years. We had a little bit of a drop in total number of our students enrolled in AP classes, and that number started to go back up again last year. So that is a kind of trend we do like to see. One of the things we like to emphasize is how many students are attempting the rigor of an advanced placement class sometime in their high school career. Those are the numbers we like to see. Whether those pass rates, we can get them to increase steadily is great, but really encouraging students who can try a class and get kind of that college level experience and not be shocked when they leave the high school and move off to college. So then here we're going to just look at the most recent DataQuest report on the comparison of Gilroy Unified with the rest of the county and with a couple neighboring districts and counties. At the bottom there I have in terms of what DataQuest does is they say percent of your 10 through 12 enrollment. So we know that we do not give very many 10th grade tests. For example, the one main test that 10th graders take is all three high schools offer the AP World History class for a small number of 10th graders. We have some students taking AP Computer Science in 10th grade, so there are some, but just in terms of this is how DataQuest calculates it, how the CDEs put it together. So it's nice for comparative purposes. And as you can see here, it is back to 1819. They haven't released a 1920 comparative data yet. We're always kind of a year back on that one, but just to kind of see where we fall. 28% of our 10th through 12th grade enrollment took an AP test as compared to statewide 26%. So we're slightly above the statewide average. And we are near a number of other districts in our county, a number of districts right around 30%, 31% Santa Clara, 35% San Jose Unified, so thinking about, where do we want to be? Where do we want to go? We want to see a solid percentage of our students attempting that and enrolled in an AP class. We don't match up with some of the other districts in the county, but as I have talked about at previous board meetings, if we looked at CASP data, our demographics are very different, and it's important to keep that in mind. One of the things the AP data, they don't break out kind of performance of the different subgroups comparatively. I would really like to see that because we do tend to equal or outperform by each of our subgroups as compared to other districts in the county. So it would be nice to see that at some point.
So Mr. Schrock?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one observation I saw in that slide in particular was that you can pretty much follow Highway 85 and the percentages kind of grow and they increase as you go up to the left and to the west, to the west of the Bay Area. It's an observation, but it's just kind of echoing what you're saying as well.
Right. If I could add a column in here that say percentage of free and reduced lunch, right? What's the percentage of socioeconomically disadvantaged students by district, right? And I think we would see a direct correlation for the most part, right? If we looked at these scores. And so that's why I feel it's important to look at San Benito High. They often have some similar demographics as us, right? So kind of get a range of districts around and say, how are we performing? Our test scores in general are at or slightly above the state average, and are we keeping that same kind of relationship in advanced place? I say we are, but that doesn't mean we don't want to continue to strive forward, though. But that is a good point.
And then in the test results of the previous slides, the two that were leading up to it that broke out the different subjects, it really seems like the languages really brought up the average a lot. So you have English literature and then Spanish, which really stood out as being up there in the 65, 75, and in Spanish, 93%, 83%, pretty amazing scores. So you were saying about the multiple choice, is that something that was added this time around?
That's what was removed. I think the idea that if you're going to give a test in a home and remote environment, right, to have a place where students could quickly, look up an answer, those are the most likely ones that they're going to remove and make it, make it a free response. It's going to be a problem solving, right? They were essay or problem solving questions, and that's what the scores were based on, to make it as accurate as possible in a remote setting. Sorry.
Do you think that might have affected classes that aren't so much essay driven, like statistics and math and I don't know, maybe physics and stuff?
So my supposition is that the calculus statistics class tests were already fairly problem based, and so there wasn't they were shortened significant, just like all the tests were shortened, but there wasn't such a redistribution of how the test was scored as there were on those which had both a multiple choice and an essay based section. That was a whole multiple choice section was removed from the test. So now you have a very different test than all the previous years.
Thank you.
You bet. So SAT. So the SAT data we're going to look at is some older data, but I almost hesitated to not include SAT in this presentation because we have some big questions about where SAT is going, right? This year, students are not taking the SAT. And the PSAT that all of our 10th graders take, they are not taking the PSAT, right? So we are not going to have some data in the future, at least for 1 year. And then there are questions about what are the colleges, what are UC and CSU, what is their future going to be in terms of requirements, right? That's been some of the big discussions right now. And if they stop requiring it, students will stop taking it, right, to some extent. So we have some data here. We'll go ahead and look at it, but this could be the last year for a couple of years that we look at this data, right? We will see where we are in the future, but we have some of the most recent data is from 1819. This is off of the CDE DataQuest website, because this allows us to do some comparison once again to the state of California. And they might release 1920 because last year's seniors, many students take SAT in their junior year, the beginning of their senior year, right? There might be enough data out there. I have not heard if the CDE will release a 1920 update on SAT, and it may be we want to take a pause on looking at that data, but we do have it now. So I have the last 3 years because there was a change in how the SAT reports their data in the last 3 years. So now we have 3 years of looking at percentage of students meeting the benchmark in English language arts or English and reading and writing, and percentage of students meeting their benchmark in mathematics, and then compared to the state of California to see how Gilroy Unified did compared to the state of California. The meeting the benchmark is kind of the idea I think I had on the previous slide, the percent of students that 75% likelihood of achieving a C or better in a college class in that subject area. So kind of correlating to what would be considered success in college. What really stands out to me here, though, is in the 1819, there was a drop both in the Gilroy Unified scores and the statewide scores. And so I did some digging around and discovered that there was some backup pages that the SAT no longer reported the data as such to the state, and the state had to pull their own data. And so, of course, it's a different matching than previous years. And rather than having SAT give it all to them, they pull it and then have to figure the calculations themselves. And it looks like some of that calculation happened differently. So I guess I would say I not look as carefully of this change from 1718 to 1819, but let's just look at how is Gilroy Unified compared to the state average. And we do see that Gilroy Unified is continuing to outperform, as it have in the previous years, outperform the state averages in terms of percentage of students meeting benchmark. I think the 35% of 12th grade enrollment testing is a little low, but it looks like there was a similar calculation at the statewide in terms of that difference. So if they continue to report this data, it'll be interesting to see that trend moving into the future. And last fall, we administered the PSAT to the 10th graders. And my sharing this with you is the point of that is for students to get to see their scores, to see are they meeting the benchmark, and to see they get a score report saying how kind of where are they towards meeting the benchmark, what is their score, and these are the score reports they receive usually around this the late fall or early winter to see kind of a judgment during that 10th grade year of how they're doing and are they on track for the SAT. Once again, we won't have those scores this year. We won't have a 10th grade PSAT, and we'll see in the future. And the last data point, I just want to look at college going rate. We have the college going rate up through 2018-19. So that's the 18-19 senior class. And then what percentage of them enrolled in the fall of that following year, last fall, into two-year colleges or into four-year colleges. Unfortunately, usually by this time in the year when I give this report, the CDE has updated their data, so we'd have some comparative data, and they have not. They still only have the 17-18 data. So I just want to say that the 18-19 data I have pulled from the National Student Clearinghouse and our personal matching, but these numbers will change when the state releases their data. Their matching is a little bit different, and I always want to report the state data because then it's comparable to what they're pulling for Santa Clara County and what they're pulling for the state of California. But you can see very much we're on the same track in terms of percentage of students enrolled in a two-year and four-year colleges, a little above the state average from a year ago. I don't know if there will be much of a state difference last year in 18-19 or not. We'll see when that comes in. I think the big question is this current freshman class, when sometime in the next, this current college freshman class, sometime in the next month or so, I'll be able to get that data from the National Clearinghouse and see where are those students, what percent of them actually ended up enrolling in a two-year, how many students, we usually have around 20% of students going to a four-year. Will that have dropped? Will more of them have just opted for community college this fall? That are the data I'll be able to pull within the next month or two.
So Mr. Schrock, in that same table, so those five rows above on top, that's data that we keep, that we maintain or compute?
So we do, so each year I pull it like this one, but then the 4 rows above are off the CDE website. So the data I pull is always a couple percentage points different than this. For example, if you see I have a note down here, when the state reports it, they have about 3 or 4% that they don't clarify if it's a 2-year or 4-year student. And so here you can see my 4-year college percent is off, and it tends to be that way across the board, whereas the total is usually the same, because here you can see these don't add up, right? 42 and 20 is 62%. The total 65% by the state had 3% undetermined if it was a 2-year or 4-year, but they went to college of some state. So this data is comparable here. But to answer your question, these 4 years are from the state website.
And that data is data from the state website for our district?
For Gilroy Unified. So this is Gilroy. I'm sorry, does that not say there? It does not. These years are Gilroy Unified data off the state website. They actually use the National Student Clearinghouse, which is a clearinghouse that gathers the data from colleges across the United States, and then they do their own match. I pull it before then to do our own match just to kind of give an earlier report, but they have started just last year is the first time they started to do that poll and provide that data, which is great because then it gives us comparison data. Sometimes we have our own data and we're sitting in a bubble saying, is that good? How does that compare, right? So that's the beauty of the state doing, even though the percentages are a bit different, it gives us that chance to look and see where are we compared to similar schools, neighboring districts, the state as a whole.
From this table, we're a little below the Santa Clara area average, but we're a little bit at or above, a little bit above the state average.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Well, that is it. So if other questions, anything you want me to go back to, any assessment questions that I don't know the status of?
I have a question or more of a comment. With the AP now being barred from admissions at the UCs, and I think state schools as well. I'm not sure on that, but
the SAT.
Sorry, yes, SAT.
Yeah,
Sorry, yes. What is the future here, and how much are we investing in the PSAT, and what's the future hold?
Deb, do you want to comment on that? It's not large amounts, but
we are not. We did have money set aside for the PSAT, but we are not, in fact, administering the PSAT for the 8th graders like we have, nor are we doing it for the 10th graders because the SAT is gone. We also are not using our district high schools as testing sites as we have done in the past. Because for one, we are in COVID, and two, because we do not have that anymore. Please note that the CSUs and UCs have said that they will have another assessment that they will be using as part of their criteria. They just have not determined what that is. However, they have decided for the CSUs, the course that you approved, the update of the course in your consent item for ERWC, students that take that early reading and writing course, which is the full name of it, for college, in fact, can waive out of assessments to go straight into college level exams if they are successful in that course. So we are trying to work now to make sure that our students are able to go directly into college level coursework upon graduation from high school, prior to waiting to see what the colleges are going to give us for the new assessment.
Thank you. Are there any other board questions or comments? Seeing none, Mr. Schrock, thank you for your presentation.
Yep, thank you very much.
Next, I'll call item 8E, High School New Course of Study for Advanced Placement Physics 2.
Do it again. Thank you, President Good, trustees, and Superintendent Flores. This is hopefully for you to approve the adoption of an AP Physics 2 course for both of our comprehensive high schools. Advanced Placement over the past several years has been updating their coursework, and in so doing, AP Physics used to be one kind of general overview course of physics, and they have now broken it into 2 sections, AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2. So we chose to do AP Physics 1 to start with this process. However, we do have interest from our students to take the second, what would be a second course at the college level in AP Physics. So we are recommending the approval of AP Physics 2 to give that opportunity to our students. I'm open for any questions.
Is Trustee Diaz? More power to them if they want to take additional physics. That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's especially piggybacking off of Mr. Schrock's presentation about the percentages of students taking AP tests. Anything that would increase that, I would fully support. I did notice it doesn't have statics or dynamics in the course description. It might be covered by Physics 1, but other than that, yeah, it looks great. I mean, these are exactly the kind of students and their preparation that I was afraid of when I was in college, because it was pretty impressive that they took that in high school already. So kudos for even looking into it, both on your end, the teachers' end, and the students' desire as well.
Okay, and if there are no other questions, then this is an action item. We are seeking approval of this course.
Trustee Diaz, motion to approve.
Linda Pisano, second.
Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc, Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Abstain?
Linda Pisano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item, number F, Gilroy Teachers Association request for contract waiver for elementary schools, Article 12.7.1. This is an action item.
Thank you, President Good, members of the board, Superintendent Flores. I'll actually talk about items F and G together. They're very similar. They're both action items presented by President Lindsay Hack from the Gilroy Teachers Association. The GTA contract allows for the executive board of GTA to present slight modifications for a single year to the collective bargaining agreement. Item F is to make slight adjustments to the elementary school parent conferences. In particular, those adjustments are being presented by GTA due to some of the issues of COVID-19. And item G is the same essentially contract waiver, but for middle schools, and to adjust some of those times in the contract for this year due to COVID-19. So we're requesting the board approve both F and G presented by GTA. Both items were affirmed by the president of GTA, Lindsay Hack.
And because the audience watching has no idea what you're talking about, could you talk a little bit about what what's being waived?
Sure. So both parts of these articles actually say specific times when students should be released and when conferences should happen. Obviously, with distance learning, schedules are very different. And so there are adjustments to, number one, particular days of the week when these conferences should happen. And then number two, instead of, for example, a 1:30 release time, there's adjustments to make sure that it coincides better with distance learning. So the waivers are specific to days of the week and times of when those conferences should happen.
Thank you. Are there any board questions or comments on either F or G? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for both of those.
This is BC, move to approve F and G.
This is James, I will second.
Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Pisano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item number H, variable term waiver request. And it looks like we have a number of those, H, I, J, and K, all variable term waiver requests. Would you like to address them in unison?
Thank you thank you so much, President Good. I don't think I've ever had this many items from HR. So I'll address them in two different clumps. H and I are very similar. We have two fantastic teachers at Las Animas in our dual immersion program. Unfortunately, due to coronavirus and some of the restrictions for testing, they were unable to finish their bilingual authorization. And so we're requesting that the board approve a temporary, what's called a variable term waiver, so they can continue to provide amazing service at Las Animas in our dual immersion program. So H and I are specific to the variable term for bilingual authorization. If you'd like, I can go over the next two.
Please.
Perfect, thank you so much. Items J and K are also very similar. Gilroy Unified is very lucky to have full-time athletic trainers at both of our high schools, at Gilroy High as well at Christopher High. Pamela Joseph and Casey Lester serve in that capacity for each school. Their credentials are a little bit different than normal teaching credentials. And what I mean by that is there's an authorization that's normally in a teaching credential that allows teachers to teach students who are language learners. These particular credentials, which are specific to athletic training, actually that certificate doesn't come until they've finished their second portion of the credentials. So because of that reason, we provide them with a variable term waiver that gives them the authorization to teach language learners. Both of these teachers are actually teaching courses. They're not just doing athletic training. They do teach sports medicine, again, very unique to Gilroy Unified. Very proud of that. And so those two variable waivers are for that purpose. And those are items J and K.
Thank you, Mr. Winslow. Are there any board questions or comments on items H through K? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
This is BC. I move to approve H through K.
This is Linda, I second.
Roll call, please.
Enrique Diaz,
Yes.
BC Doyle,
Yes.
Twin Fioc,
Yes.
Mark Good,
Yes.
James Pace,
Yes.
Linda Pisano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have item number 9, action information items regarding facilities. Approval of contract with Colby Technologies for quality bidder services not to exceed $18,000/$16,000 annually. So I guess we can start off hopefully by telling us what $18,000/$16,000 annually means.
Sure. Good evening, President Good and Dr. Flores and members of the board. I will present the contract for Colby Technologies. What you're seeing there is $18,000 for the first year and then $16,000 for every subsequent year. The $2,000 delta difference is the cost that it's going to take to migrate our current information into their system. Essentially, this is a software system that's going to assist the district in keeping track of all of the contractors that we use. We have a strict policy on which contractors we use, insurance provisions, things like that. We're also what's known as a CUPCA district, which announces that we get some relaxed benefits for higher bidding amount without having to go to formal bidding. And what that does is that because we pre-qualify all of our contractors, these are contractors doing work on our facilities for both maintenance and the facilities department, it enables us to select from a pre-approved pool. So this contract with quality bidders will actually assist us in keeping all of the regulatory pieces of this process in order. Currently, it is a very manual process that we maintain both in maintenance and in facilities separately, and it's a big undertaking every year. So we're about to go into a new year, and that's really why we're doing it right now. Is we want to start off the annual year 2021. Getting all of our contractors onto this new system. Let's see. So one of the things that I think is very important, in fact, Trustee Diaz brought it up earlier about that institutional knowledge and getting that information to stay. If for any reason I'm not here or Dan is not here, this is a system that is very easy to use, and there's very little learning curve. And so it provides a much better platform for somebody to take over if that was needed. It's a very easy learning curve to take care of. So this would be an annual subscription for the software and the bidding platform. So all of the work that we bid out gets tracked and measured through quality bidders. And that's one of the elements that to me is very helpful. And it also keeps us up to compliance. There are small compliance issues that I don't trust that we do very well, and I'd like to make sure that we fix that. And this software platform verifies and makes sure that we stay in compliance every year. With that, I will take any questions you may have about the software.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about the contract. I'm looking at the contract and it's for $18,000. So that's where the $18,000 comes from. But it terminates at 6/30 of June 30th of next year, which is less than a year from now. And it doesn't talk about annual subscription fees. So what's the deal?
So the annual subscription fees would go for, and that's, so our contracts usually run from July 1st to June 30th. Their software agreement, I would assume, goes to December 30th of 2021. I'll verify that after the meeting, but their software would go from July, or excuse me, well, we'd do a truncated, obviously for this year, we would start July or January 1st of 2021 and then move to December 31st of 2021. That's the time in which, like in November, we advertise for new contractors and then we qualify them for January 1st of the following year. So we want our software to actually match up with that.
Okay, so the contract's going to need to be corrected because it's wrong.
Okay. We can modify that.
And then it doesn't discuss any subsequent years of subscription either. Do we need to do that?
I believe, let me see if I can get into there.
Sure, I'm looking at our agreement for professional services.
Right. Ours, nope, it does stop at the end of the year. So those are two elements that we'll need to amend.
Well, Paul, do you need this approved tonight? Is it urgent?
It's not urgent. It'll put us a little behind, but I'm completely willing to do that because if it's not right, I don't want to push it forward if it's not correct.
Yeah, it sounds like we need to bring it back with, extending the length of it to cover if you're proposing this lasts more than just this year.
Yeah. Yeah, the contract would be for 3 years, and I could swear I read that earlier. But if it's not in there, then I will go back and amend it and make sure that it fits our time slot in contracts. We would amend, we'll amend our contracts to fit the calendar year and not the business year.
Great. And then the other question I have is about the actual software. Is it proprietary?
Their software is a proprietary software. There's a software agreement. In fact, we would have brought this last month, but we wanted our legal team to review it. And I believe that is the last attachment is the software agreement.
And is the data separate? Is the data separate, or can the data be separate from the software, or are we committing to them for time immemorial?
What was the last question?
Are we committing to them forever? In other words, can we take our data and integrate it into a new platform? Let's say they raise the price of their software license to $100,000 a year. Then what?
Yep. We can actually offload our data, whether or not we continue to subscribe with them. It will export out, at any point, so we can copy it, use it internally. We will always have a copy of our own data, whether we're subscribed to them or not. They also offer a service for no cost. If we decide not to renew with them, we can still access our data and our contractors on their servers for like 10 years at no cost.
Great. That's all my questions. Any other board questions or comments?
This is Trustee Diaz.
Trustee Diaz?
So the only thing I would say is anything that makes your job easier by all means is something that we should investigate and look into. It would be good to see if this is something you kind of keep track of as time goes by, is what the return on investment is, like what kind of savings we see, you see, the district sees as a result of using this software. One benefit that I see right now is just if data is stored on their end, and that automatically becomes a form of external storage somewhere physically away from us. And then that also would kind of beg the question to them is how do they back up their own data? Just other points to look into.
Excellent. Okay, I can definitely do that. Most of our, if we have questions about data and backup, what we would generally do is I would refer this over to IT. They have a list of questions about how they redundantly back up. And I think there's a certain set of protocols that our IT department kind of mandates. Something that we should keep in mind, the data that we would be storing on their system is not proprietary on our side. It could be because they do review our contractors' financials. It could be proprietary for the contractor, but we won't store anything on this particular set of software, anything proprietary for us. It's just it's a very sophisticated Rolodex for us, and it's configured in a way that we can actually use it for bidding out all of our work.
Any other board questions or comments? So I'm guessing this item is going to come back to us at the next meeting.
Yeah, I'll bring it back on the 19th.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Nato.
Thank you.
Next, board member reports. Are there any board member reports? No board member reports. Well,
this is Trustee Diaz.
Trustee Diaz.
Sorry, I forgot to. I was on mute. So, since it was election day, I took a gander. I guess I drove around the city just to Rod Kelly to see their voting places, and everything looked great. And the drop box was out and very visible and very accessible roads. So I just want to kind of mention that. I drove by City Hall as well, the police station, and everything looked orderly there too, which I was really encouraged considering all the talk and hoopla that was going on. But just kind of wanted to mention that. And I know I mentioned it last time, but I'll mention it again. Kids are in the throes of applying to university. I want to get away from saying kids, young students, young adults, because that's exactly what they are. And I see the work that they put into it. So I want to, again, commend them. I don't think I mentioned counselors before. I want to mention them this time around. The teachers, the staff, the mentors, anybody who writes letters of recommendations and referrals. I can see some of the stress going on. I'm sure we recognize it as well, but I just kind of want to mention that as well, and kind of ties back into Mr. Schrock's presentation on testing and stuff. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. Any other board reports? Seeing none, are there any upcoming and new referral agenda items? I know Ms. Polito really wants to say
Trustee
something.
Diaz again.
Okay, Trustee Diaz.
Sorry. So I know, again, kind of with seniors coming up, I know valedictorian speeches is something that comes up every year. It's something that I'd like more visibility. I guess something that we can talk about who gets to speak would be the topmost question. And I don't know if that's broad enough or if I should be more specific about that.
Well, we don't want to get into a discussion about it right now because it's not on the agenda, but I think as a start, we could send you some information in my Sunday report because the process was revised, what, 3 years ago, Deb?
No, it was before me, so I think it's been about five years now.
Time flies for me. But anyway, we do have a process for how they're selected, and why don't we start with sharing that with you, that all the high schools actually agreed on a consistent process across the high schools. But that, I don't want to say too much because it's not on the agenda. So we'll give you a written report first. And then if you'd like it on an agenda, we could do that.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Any other new or upcoming referral or agenda items? Seeing none, The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Thursday, November 19th, 2020 via teleconference. Closed session will begin at 5:30, followed by the regular meeting at 7 p.m. The agenda will be available on the district's website by 5 p.m. on Friday, November 13th. Thank you, everybody, and this meeting is adjourned.
Good night, everybody.